Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. No matter where you're watching us from around the globe, I say thank you for allowing us into your homes and most importantly, into your hearts. If you're watching us today on the DBNA television network, a sincere thank you and continue to support the network, the sponsors, and the other amazing talent. If you're listening to us in podcast form today, Scotty and I say turn that volume up and let us put that flavor in your ear. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to lace them up once again for another edition of the Coach Scott Field Show. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to have a good guy here on the show with us, an 11-year NBA veteran, and 10 of those years they were in the playoffs. Drafted in the first round, the 19th pick, and I believe, 1990.
Seven.
97. So you with Tracy McGrady, Tim Duncan was the number one pick then by the Detroit Pistons. He is the father of four, married to Dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Scot Pollard. Scott, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks a lot for having me on. I don't hold it against you that you spell your name wrong with that extra T. I just think about all the time I've saved in my whole life when I've only had to write four letters instead of five.
There you go. Well, hey, two colorful personalities, two guys who have been blessed, who have been at the highest levels in basketball. Scott, there's so many questions we can ask and just have fun here. But I mean, as we talked off camera, you were born here in Utah, now live in Indiana. I was born in Indiana and I'm living in Utah. So we just kind of flip flopped.
Yeah, I'm probably related to all of your neighbors, and you might be related to a few of mine.
Oh, that's classic right there. Well, I know this. So many people, as I posted on social media today, were sending comments and are like, Scot Pollard, he was known for all the hair. And look, now you're shaved bald, and brother, I'm about to bring it home myself.
Well, hey, when I had hair, I had fun with it, and I knew it would grow back, and I knew eventually it wouldn't grow back, and here we are.
Hey, they always told me as I was losing my hair, they're like, Coach, take lots of pictures, brother. Oh goodness. Well, Scotty, let's talk about your journey in basketball, and we'll talk about so many things. But man, thinking about you getting to play, I mean, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, baby. You were with the Kansas. You played 4 years, and you were with Coach Roy Williams. What was that experience like, being at such a blue blood tradition and learning from Coach Roy Williams?
Well, we could spend hours and hours talking about that. I could spend days talking about my time with Roy. But I didn't know anything about Kansas, the state or the university, the tradition. I met Wilt Chamberlain one time in high school in San Diego, and
Wow.
had no idea he went to Kansas. I
Yeah.
just didn't know anything about Wilt Chamberlain. I wasn't a big basketball junkie when I was a kid, even though my whole family's basketball family. I just didn't watch a lot of it, so I didn't know much about the history. Going to Kansas, I owe everything besides my genetics and my willpower to Roy Williams, about educating myself about, or helping educate me about being a man. My dad passed away when I was 16 years old, and I certainly needed a father figure in my life at that age. And really, that's what sold me on Kansas, was Roy Williams as a second father to me. He was a role model I needed in my life. He told the truth always. He never promised me anything. He said, "You work for it, you're going to start for us. If you don't work for it, you're not going to start for us." I got starters. I got talent. And other coaches would promise me things that Roy didn't. And having been the youngest of six, and all of my siblings being recruited for Division I basketball, my dad's in the state of Utah Hall of Fame. So I've been around the block a few times, even when I was a kid, and knew a lot about the recruiting tricks and the lies they tell you, and committing to a college, and all of a sudden the coach is gone. And so I made Roy Williams promise me he wasn't going to be gone or leave during my 4 years there at Kansas. And really quickly, I do want to tell a story about, you mentioned I got drafted in '97 with Tim Duncan. There was a brief discussion, and you can ask Greg Popovich if you ever get his ear. There was a brief discussion about drafting me instead of Tim Duncan in San
Wow.
Antonio. R.C. Buford is a Kansas guy. He won his national
Yep.
championship with Larry Brown, as you well know, and he was the GM at the time. And they just assumed I was more NBA ready at the time than Tim Duncan, who had been playing basketball for about 5 minutes. And I've talked to Pop as a commentator many years later and many years ago. But after my NBA career was over, I did some commentating for the Pacers and asked him one time, I said, "Hey, I heard a rumor." He said, "It was a brief conversation."
You
Just
got
think, would you have heard of Greg Popovich if they had drafted Scot Pollard instead of Tim Duncan?
Pop is a class act, and then you talk about R.C. Buford. The way they run that small market franchise, they just do a great job. And you were a part of multiple small franchises that we're going to dive into. But think about Roy Williams. No fluff, straight talk, and you had to respect that, and the fact that the talent that you were around in your 4 years. Do you think that 4 years of playing at the college level helped better prepare you for the NBA?
100%. I came in and Richard Scott was a senior starting at the four, and Greg Ostertag, who all the people in Utah know very well,
That's right.
was starting at the five. And Coach Williams said, if you can beat them out, you'll start, but I don't think you will. And that was a challenge to me. And so I took that as a challenge. I learned a whole lot about posting up from Richard Scott because that man was about 6'6" and posted up harder than anybody I ever played against at that point. And then Greg Ostertag taught me a whole lot about trying to get a shot off against a giant that has incredible timing. And I know that Utah Jazz fans don't, some of them love him, some of them don't. But man, he is one of the most talented players I ever played with or against. Greg had incredible athleticism. Anytime he wanted to take over a game, he could. He just didn't always want to. But when I was playing against him, I learned a whole lot about trying to get a shot off against 7'2" guy with great timing. And that helped me in the NBA. Being able to post up against Richard Scott, who got low, 6'6", a smaller guy for his post play, but that man was so strong, taught me how to post up strong and make sure I could get open and get my butt into somebody and make sure that when somebody throws me the ball, I'm going to be able to catch it. I'm not getting shoved off my spot. So that was just my freshman and sophomore year, playing against those guys, and then learning against Rafe LaFrentz, Paul Pierce, Jock Vaughn, Nick Bradford. Just the list goes on and on against the NBA talent. Ryan Robertson ended up being teammates with me in Sacramento for 1 year after our career in Kansas was over. So a whole lot of guys, Billy Thomas, incredible shooter. Just I don't want to leave anybody out, but
Right.
I got to be exposed because of my time at Kansas to a whole lot of NBA talent, but mostly the discipline of Roy Williams and the system of Roy Williams and teaching me how to read and react to situations that I hadn't ever done before really made me a better NBA player and made me a better human.
When you're saying those stories, of course, I'm an attention to detail kind of guy, and I'm thinking of all those little mechanics that you learned probably going against Ostertag. Having a wide base for balance, creating a little bit of contact for the space to get your shot off, and all those little things are coming to my mind as you're sharing that. So it's fun to hear you say that because I'm a true believer that coach-driven teams can have success, but player-driven teams are always going to be more successful because you players will hold each other accountable, and those voices you won't tune out as quick because you don't want to get put on blast by your teammates.
Exactly. I've coached one of my sons for many years in just a recreational league here, and that's what I teach them day in and day out. I say, guys, we're going to go in here and we're going to do some drills and we're going to learn, but I want you guys to have fun in here and be able to make fun of each other and be able to take that and assimilate that into your soul because they want what's good for us. We all want to win. And so when you have that kind of culture, the coach can bark at you all you want, but if you don't like the coach, you're barking back at the coach and you're not making fun of your teammate or you're not praising your teammate. You're not thanking your teammate for a great pass or a great play that helped you win. And so it is all intertwined, and I agree with you. Coaching is important, but if the team can't make fun of each other and can't get along, doesn't matter who the coach is. It could be Greg Popovich. They're not going to win.
That's right. I love that. So thanks for sharing that with us, Scotty. I mean, the insights that you could share because of, the teams that you've played on. And when I'm sitting there thinking, I mean, my gosh, 10 of your 11 years, you're in the playoffs. And that's pretty unique and special. And being in small market teams, I mean, you guys have got to count on each other, rely on each other, push each other, hold each other accountable, have fun, like you're saying. That's all a part of it. And that camaraderie and that culture of family has got to be there.
Absolutely. And to even extend that further, and it's not as important as the NBA, but all 3 of the years I played varsity basketball and all 4 years that I played at Kansas, I played in the postseason. So I knew what it took to win. I was always part of successful programs. I was very blessed in that manner. And so when it came to towards the end of my career and my skill wasn't as good, people still wanted me on their team. And even when I retired after 10 years, I said, I'm done. Boston called and I said, nope, I'm done. And then my agent talked me into it. My financial advisor talked me into it. And so I went to Boston. And when I was done with Boston, I had career-ending surgery. And still I had phone calls. I still had teams that wanted me to come in because of that experience, because of the guy that I am or was as a teammate, and what I brought to programs, the winning mentality, the hard work, and the ability to crack up a locker room and make sure guys are when those days, when it gets slow in January and February, this is the time of year where
The dog days, baby. That's right.
it's brutal. And that's when the rookies hit the wall because they've never played 30 games in a season before, other than AAU, some of them. But this is real, and you're in a different time zone every other day. And it's brutal this time of year. And this is the time of year where a coach that plays that played in the NBA helps, but a coach that understands the NBA and that mentality and that physicality of not just being in shape, not just being ready, but traveling through time zones, airplanes, trains, automobiles, buses. And then in January and February, your rookies are just gone. They're blown. Their minds are blown. Their bodies are blown. And you've got to figure out a way to get all of that back together. It's magic. And I will forever say that the best head coaches in the NBA are only motivators. They're not the X and O guy on offense. They're not the X and O guy on defense. The best coaches in the NBA played in the NBA, and they're motivators. They let the assistant coaches hear a different voice. You barking about offense, this one's barking about defense. And then the motivator is in there saying, hey, listen to these guys, and here's how we're going to make this happen.
Yeah, it's all about time management, man. That's exactly right.
Sometimes the best course of action is you walk into the court, you look at your team, they're dead tired. It's January 12th.
Get out of here.
You know what? Our assistant coach used to play. He's 54 years old. If he can dunk it, we're leaving. And that happened. We had a coach, John Wetzel. He's still with us. John Wetzel in Sacramento. There was one day it was one of those days, and we were exhausted. And we had another game that night, back to back, and we're just dead. And Coach Adelman says, it's his birthday. He's 54 today. If he can dunk it, we're leaving. He went and dunked it, and we left.
But you think about what that does for the spirit, the unity, the morale, just to kind of have that hype. I mean, it's got to be like, yes. And for Coach Adelman to have his finger on the pulse, to read the room, to be like, you know what, let's back off, because I'd rather have them ready tonight at 7 o'clock than 11 a.m. shoot around.
Yep. One of my favorite Wilt Chamberlain quotes, and there's a bunch of them, but one of my favorite Wilt Chamberlain quotes is, his coach, one of them, I don't remember which one it was, said, hey, Wilt, we're going to start doing shoot-arounds. It was like the first coach that said we're going to do a shoot-around day of the game. And Wilt said, well, you can have me at 10 a.m. or you can have me at 7 p.m. You ain't getting both.
That's exactly right. Oh, I love it, man. I'm sitting here and I want to backtrack a little bit because, 4 years at Kansas with Roy Williams, which helped set that foundation, helped you with your mindset, get your preparation ready for the NBA. You get drafted in that 97 class. Tim Duncan was number one. I think Chauncey Billups was in the top three. Tracy McGrady was in that group. You go at number 19. To the Pistons, and Doug Collins is coaching there. But I mean, you were with Joe Dumars, you had Grant Hill, Rick Mahorn. Take us through that process of going from, a 30 to 33 game schedule to now an 82 game schedule. And yet, who took you under their wing as a player with that franchise to be, hey, this is how to be a pro. You have to eat right. You got to take care of yourself. You got to ice the knees. You got to get your rest. Who is that guy who said, Scotty, I got you?
Short answer is Rick Mahorn.
Rick.
Everybody was great. Grant Hill, Joe Dumars was great. But Rick Mahorn, being a big, myself, and him being a big, he tried to tempt me a few times. It'd be a night before a game. He's like, hey, man, let's go get a drink. No, thanks for showing me what not to do, Rick. and I really think he was just testing me to see if I'd go and he could get me drunk so that he'd play more the next time.
Hey, there you go.
But
Seeing how mentally tough you were.
exactly, and so there were things that he challenged. I'd go get him the rookie stuff, I'd get him the donuts and the coffee and the paper every day, all that stuff, which I think is great. I think that's part of becoming a man in the NBA is making the rookies do stuff. And if they won't do it, you know what? I saw it throughout my whole career. I never saw a rookie that refused to do that stuff become good, become successful. The ones that were like, no, not doing it, they found their way out of the league. They found their way out of a career in playing basketball in the NBA with 450 or 500 best in the world to do it. You got to check your ego at the door, even when your ego depends on your success. You have to know when to push that ego on and when to turn it off. And the rookies that didn't figure that out found their career to be very short. But quick story, Detroit got bullied into drafting me at 19. They had the first round of the second pick, and that's what they worked me out for because they thought I was going to be around. But then I worked out for 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, skipped 27, and I worked out for 28, which was the Chicago Bulls. I skipped 27. That was the Utah Jazz.
Wow.
And I told Scott Layden at the time, I said, listen, I know I'm related to the entire state. I know it'd be a great fit. I love Jerry Sloan, but I could never, ever deal with my personal life in Utah. I could fill that arena every single home game with family and still piss people off. And I can't manage that. I wasn't mature enough at that point.
That's self-awareness right there. Self-awareness.
So I just said, sorry, I'm not trying to big time you. I think it's a great program. You guys were just in the finals against the Bulls. Of course, it'd be an honor to play with Karl Malone and John Stockton towards the end of their careers and learn from them and be back teammates with Greg Ostertag. But I said, I can't do it. So anyway, I went and worked out for all those teams, and every one of them said they were going to pick me. And that's why Detroit picked me at 19, because they knew I wasn't going to be there for the first pick of the second round. And so they picked me at 19 because everyone else that I worked out for said, that's your guy. Now, there's a longer version of that I give when I give speeches to people, corporations, talking about hard work and camaraderie and teamwork, bringing people together. But that's the short version, the Cliff Notes version, if you will.
How grueling was it for you physically to go to all of those workouts to showcase your skill sets, for the front office and the coaching staffs?
It was nothing compared to Roy Williams.
Oh, wow. Nice. Okay.
I showed up at those workouts. I was in better shape than everyone. I ran harder. I ran faster. They'd throw 225 on the bench press. I don't know why a basketball player that's relevant for a basketball player, but they'd throw 225. How many can you do? And they threw 175 for most guys because they couldn't even do 225. But I do 225 and just ask them, how many do you need me to do? I've never done this before, but how many do you need me to do? And I would just keep doing it until they said, okay, you can stop now. You beat everybody.
Wow.
Same thing with leg press. Same thing with bench press. Same thing with squats. Again, squats have nothing to do with basketball. I'm not a weight coach, but I've had some weight coaches in my day, and not one of them ever made us do squats in the NBA because they all said there's just no functional transition from squats to the NBA. But in those workouts, some of them did squats, some of them did leg press. But yeah, it was very easy for me to go through those and just bust my butt, be the best I could be. And I made one guy quit, and he got drafted 25 that year.
Okay.
We were in a different team. He didn't get drafted by the team he quit on.
Yeah.
We were working out against each other, and I think he got drafted 25. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But we were in one of those workouts playing one-on-one. He said, forget it. I don't want to play in this team anyway. And it was Atlanta.
Wow.
He walked out of the workout. I made a guy quit. So that helped my stock as well. But I'm not here to brag about me, but those are some stories from those days. And those workouts are meant to be challenging. The only one that was a little bit mentally challenging was being in the Chicago Bulls practice facility with Phil Jackson walking in, the returning NBA champion, and the guy that coaches Michael Jordan, and him. We're running through the triangle, and I'm just like, here, I'll go here, and then I do this, and this makes sense to me because I'm a read and react guy.
Right?
Like, no, that's not it. And I'm going, but okay. What do you want me to do? He goes, well, you're supposed to read and react. I said, well, I just did. I just read and reacted.
Yeah.
I said it was wrong because the triangle is about reading and reacting.
Yep.
And I said, I know Tex Winter made this for you. He coached at Kansas State against my dad when my dad played at Utah. So I know the offense.
Yeah.
So tell me what you want to see, and I'll do that. And he was just like, forget it. This guy is never going to understand. And he
Oh,
walked out.
what
So I knew I
great
wasn't getting
story.
drafted by the Bulls.
Great story, great story. Because the triangle is read to react. I mean, it's all predicated on that first post entry pass and where that point guard's going to go, and then then you got your post pinch and
Yeah, but
wow.
apparently I was too dumb to get it. So instead of getting drafted last in the draft, I got drafted 19th. My fault.
There you go. I love it. Well, again, you spent that year with the Pistons, and then then you go to the Kings. Uh, Jason Williams, Chris Webber, Peja Stojakovic, the captain Vlade Divac. Take me through going into that locker room, because you mentioned how important the locker room is, and I know that being in those shoes. Um, Chris Webber, Jason Williams, who played loose, Peja, who could shoot it. Give me the feel in the Sacramento Kings locker room when you came in there.
I was ready to go back and get my master's, finish my master's. I was almost a master's in education. I was going to teach high school history and government and tell them fight the power. But I walked into that locker room in Sacramento. In Philadelphia, actually, is where I joined the team during the lockout season in '99. And that was my third team in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
The lockout ended. Detroit traded me to Atlanta. Atlanta gave me a flu shot. And shockingly, I got the flu, and I was so sick, they cut me. And so I was still on a guaranteed contract, my rookie year contract, for 2 more years. And so Atlanta was paying me anyway. And I just said, all right. I called my agent, where are we going? He said, go to Philadelphia. They'll give you a test there. And I was in a jersey that night on the third team in 2 weeks. So I played that night against Allen Iverson and the Philly 76ers and made a decent impression. I didn't play that much. And then so I just kept quiet. I was not really myself, because I was basically in my head, I'm like, I'll just cash these checks. And at the end of this short season, it'll be my second year in the NBA. I'll be done. I'll get another year's pay from Atlanta because they owe me my third year of my rookie contract. And I'll go back to Kansas, get my master's, which is I'm only a few credits shy of a master's. All I needed to do was student teach, and I would have had my master's degree. And I'll be a teacher, and I'm good. I already bought a house after my rookie year that I could afford based on my rookie contract, and I was socking money away. I was fine. And so that was my plan. For really the first few weeks I was in Sacramento, I was just like, all right, I guess this wasn't the right thing for me. I don't belong in the NBA. I thought I did, but I guess I don't. And then I finally got a shot against the Utah Jazz and Karl Malone. And I went in there and I frustrated the hell out of Karl Malone. I bothered him. I don't know why. I don't know how, but I bothered Karl Malone really badly. And that's when I got my gig in the NBA, was because I bothered Karl Malone. And all of a sudden the Kings were like, hey, we got to play this guy more. I learned a whole lot from Vlade Divac. I learned a whole lot from Lawrence Funderburk. Loved being teammates with Chris Webber. He was a great teammate almost all of the time. There were times where his emotions got the best of him in the wrong times. But man, he was so talented. I still say to this day, a healthy Chris Webber was the most talented overall player I ever played with or against. And I played with LeBron James.
That's right.
Chris Webber made every single thing about basketball look like he was doing it in his sleep. He could pass, he could shoot, he could rebound, he could block shots, he could guard people. He didn't always do all of those things. But when he wanted to, and when he was doing those things, he could play point guard, he could play 2, he could play 3, 4, 5. I never played with another player that made every single part of basketball look easy and look like he could just do it no matter what. Left-handed, right-handed, finish this way, finish that way. Chris Webber had the most talent of any player I ever played with, and that's hands down. And I know people sometimes have a hard time hearing that because he was injured, because there was other things that distract you from that talent. But I saw him every day. Remember, I saw him in practice. I saw White Chocolate in practice. My Lord and baby Jesus.
Ooh.
Wish we had video of White Chocolate trying things out in practice that you saw in games, the dumbed down version, because it was like playing with one of the Harlem Globetrotters at their very best all the time, but legal.
That's his court vision and awareness was spectacular. And like you say, I'm going back in my mind now thinking, of those years that you were in Sacramento, the rules and the physicality and the versatility that Chris Webber played with. Because think about it, here's a guy, you don't hear much about it, but his passing skills out of the high post were phenomenal. And him to take a rebound and, lead the fast break off the dribble and then get it to, a Jason Williams who could do some unbelievable things. And you got Stojakovic shooting it, from the perimeter. Scotty, that was something special.
Chris was just an incredible talent. Behind the back passes, his vision, it was there, and people recognized that he was a great passer. But his vision was unmatched. It was Jason Williams, it was Chris Webber, it was Jock Vaughn. Of all the guys I could play with that could pass when you didn't think the ball was going to get there, and it got there, it was those three.
Yeah, and think about it. You got to play with Jacques Vaughn at a couple stops because you were with him at Kansas. You were with him there. And, I mean, here's a guy who's, now got his chops, as a coach and does a great job. But, man, think of how many times with Kansas guys that you got to reconnect with and play with again in your – I mean, just like Paul Pierce, So, wow.
Yeah, it was truly incredible playing against guys I played with in college and then playing against them in the NBA. It goes to show that the legacy that is Kansas basketball, the program that is Kansas basketball, but also just the amount of talent I played with. I joke about it nowadays. I'm like, I scored 1,000 points at Kansas. I was the 11th option. There were guys on the bench that got more looks than me, because they could shoot and I could shoot, but I'm like, hey, Billy Thomas is a better shooter than me. Jared Haas is a better shooter than me. And Roy would always say, like, Scott, if you're open, shoot the ball. I'm like, but I can go knock his guy down and he can get an open three. And if he misses, I can rebound a hell of a lot better than he can.
There you go.
I knew my role. And so when I hit that three, my senior game, my last game at Kansas, I shot a three and I made it. And I went over to coach. I was like, see, I told you I could shoot him. He goes, I never doubted you, son. And then he said, sometimes you're open for a reason.
Yeah, well, and see, you think of that, you were a star in your role always. And I hear how cerebral you were because you knew if you set a screen with the right angle, Jacques Vaughn's going to get a higher percentage shot, which is proficiency. And that's why your phone was always ringing because you need a guy like yourself who was going to keep the atmosphere light, who was going to work hard, who knew his role, who didn't try to do too much, but yet do what you do well, just like you getting in the head of Karl Malone and making him catch it where he wasn't as comfortable. I mean, those are cerebral tactics that are invaluable to a franchise.
Yeah, and some of the stuff came second nature to me. Again, I'm not patting myself on the back. It just, I grew up in a basketball family. I watched basketball. My brothers play, my sister play from childhood. So
right.
I watched a whole lot of basketball. And I guess what I'm saying is I didn't realize how easy it was for me to internalize all of that, watch it, and then incorporate it or think about it. And I can't coach it. I can't teach my son or his teammates how to read and react because to me it was just an innate thing. Like Michael Jordan can't coach a basketball team. I know that. I'm not comparing myself to Michael Jordan in any way, shape, or form, but I know that Michael Jordan cannot teach basketball because he just knows basketball. He just knows how to do it. And some coaches can play and then do it. I'm not one of them. I can only do it, and I coach the rec league because I have a good time with it, and we're having fun. Sorry, my grandfather clock. Senior bought that when I was 1 year old, so it's old.
Love it. That's sentimental.
Yeah. So when it comes to imparting the knowledge that I have, it was impossible. But yeah, I was lucky that franchises recognized it. Another quick story that I tell, a longer version when I give speeches. I was done with my Pacers contract. I was on a boys trip to Vegas back when I used to do boys trips to Vegas. And I was playing craps with my friends, and it wasn't going well. So I was like, guys, love you, but I need a new fresh, because if you play craps, you know it's a little bit of a superstitious game. I'm not superstitious about anything except craps. I go over to a table and it's private, and the dealer is like, hey, Scott, don't worry, this guy's not showing up. We'll let you play here, and no one's going to bother you. We'll leave it private. I said, all right, well, if anybody wants to play, craps is a communal game. So I'm playing. This little guy walks up and he goes, hey, do you mind if I join you? I was like, absolutely, go ahead, let's go. And so we're rolling, and this guy is just grilling me. He's asking me NBA question after NBA question. And in my head, I'm kind of starting to get like, all right, maybe I bit off more than I could chew. Maybe I shouldn't have let this guy, because I was in my head, I'm like, all right, I was kind of just wanting to play craps, and you just keep asking me questions. But he was really polite. He was really nice about it, but he kept asking me questions. We rolled, won some money, finally crapped out. And he goes, hey, thank you for letting me pick your brain. I'm sorry to bother you. Here's my card. Now, this is after my 9th year in the NBA. 2 months later, I was a Cleveland Cavalier. The man who gave me his business card was Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavaliers.
Wow.
Which goes to show you, kids, you never know who's going to come up to you. You never know when the opportunity is going to strike to impress somebody. And he loved my answers. He loved that I was approachable. He loved that and he told me all these things later, but I had no idea that was the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers that walked up to me and just started grilling me while we're throwing the bones. So you just never know what opportunity is going to be there. You always have to be ready. If you're going to be in public and you're recognizable, like a 7-foot caveman like this guy, you got to be on. You have to be on and be ready for any opportunity and take advantage of that opportunity. So I thank Dan Gilbert for bothering me in Vegas in 2000 and whatever it was, 6, and then making me become a Cleveland Cavalier and get to the NBA Finals for the first time in my career.
Great life lesson right there. Because again, you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's listening. You don't know who's observing you from afar. And like you say, you're always on audition. And, just the fact that you had patience and you talked with him, it opened up things where you did not burn that bridge. So great story, Scotty. Love you sharing that. Man, this is just so fun. I grew up in Indiana. I was a high school Hall of Famer there. You're playing for Rick Carlisle in Indiana. You got Larry Bird in the front office. What kind of things after multiple years in the NBA, what were you able to take away from Larry Bird being in that franchise?
Bird was fairly aloof when I was here. Now he coached the team before I got here, and Rick was his assistant. But when I got here, he was the GM, he was the president, and so him and Donnie were up in the office, smoking cigarettes, talking about player moves and this and that, and doing what they do. He'd come to practice once in a while, but he didn't really do anything on the court. He didn't talk to us much. Every once in a while, we'd say, "Hey, Bird, you still got it," and throw it to him, and invariably, as the legend goes, this man in a suit or whatever he's wearing, dress shoes, you throw him a ball anywhere on the court, bucket. It went in. The legend is always going to be etched in my mind. There's no one I have ever been around that was a better trash talker and could absolutely back it up as an older man, not an old man, because he's still not old, but he's getting there. I guarantee you, if he's there right now at the field house and he walked in and said, "Hey man, knock one down from half court," he'd probably make it and talk trash while it's in the air. So how much are you going to pay me before this goes in?
Wow. The hick from French Lick, lighten it up, baby.
Absolutely. But quick story, because it's fun. When I got traded there from Sacramento to Indiana, I was in Kansas playing cards with my friends, and it was on TV. I got traded. I didn't know that this was going to happen.
Oh.
So the next day, I'm on my driveway, sitting there, like soaking my fears, going, "I've never been to Indiana other than just play there in college once, and the NBA." And I'm like, I don't really want to go there. I didn't want to be in the Eastern Conference again. And I'm talking to one of my friends on the phone in Kansas, and Mike is his name. And he goes, we're just talking, all of a sudden it's clicking over. This is before you had caller ID, but my phone is clicking, and I'm going, 317. I think that's Indianapolis. I go, "Hey buddy, give me a second. I got to click over and see who this is." I click over, and it's Larry Bird. And he goes, "Hey, Scott, it's Bird. Let me talk to you." And I was like, "Hey, give me a second. I got to get off the other line." He goes, "No problem." So I click over. I go, "Hey, Mike, uh, Larry Bird's on the other line. I got to go." He goes, "Listen, man, if you don't want to talk anymore, don't feed me a line like Larry Bird is on the other line. Just say I want to hang up now."
Oh, that's
That
good
was my
stuff.
first phone call with Larry Bird.
Love it. Love it. Man, and again, Indiana, you're with Reggie Miller, Hall of Famer, Jermaine O'Neal, Meta World Peace. You're with the team that is involved in the Malice in the Palace. Take me through that.
Uh, I'd rather
I mean,
not. But
great documentary, on ESPN. I thought they did a good job, and they did a good job of sharing the perspective from Indiana because I mean, you guys, are gearing up to win a championship, and you had all the right pieces.
Okay. We did have all the right pieces to win a championship. We were in the Eastern Conference Finals the previous spring against the Detroit Pistons. And I'm giving this backstory because this is why the brawl happened.
Love it. Give it. Juice it.
Rick Carlisle was the coach of the Pistons before they won the NBA championship that year. He felt like he built that team and they did him wrong. So when we played the Pistons, he wanted to beat them more than anything else in the world. When we lost to him in the Eastern Conference Finals, because of a whole long story that we're not going to get into now, he took it personally, and he wanted to beat them really badly every time we play them. Well, the next fall is when that brawl happened, and we're there, and we're beating the crap out of them because we're a better team. We got Steven Jackson now, and we've got some championship experience, and we're rolling. And we're beating the crap out of them. Game's in hand. It's over. There's just over a minute left. We're up double digits. They're not coming back. But our starters are in the game because why? Rick Carlisle wanted to send a message. If Rick Carlisle pulls the starters, Detroit pulls their starters, game winds down, brawl doesn't happen. And nobody talks about that. I'm not blaming Rick Carlisle per se.
Right.
But I'm just saying if the coaches had pulled the starters because the game was out of hand, Meta World Peace, Ron Artest does not get in a fight with Ben Wallace, who neither one of them wants to really actually fight in a game. No NBA player actually wants to fight in a game. All that happens is you spend money to talk trash and say, hold me back, hold me back. It's a bunch of crap nowadays, even in my day. And there were still fights once in a while, and I was part of them previously in my career. And that's why I stood around and just made sure nobody came close to me because I'm not going to spend money to beat up a normal-sized human.
Yeah.
The fans coming on the court didn't scare me at all.
Right.
What are they going to do? I'm a giant. I can crush you barehanded. If I want to hijack a plane, I'm going to hijack a plane. I'm not saying I'm going to because I'm not a nut job, but I'm saying that little flimsy door in the front of the aircraft is not stopping a caveman. I'm busting through that and I'm forcing the plane down. So when I'm talking about these fans coming onto the court and people are like, well, we had to defend ourselves. And on the Netflix special, they're like, well, we didn't know. It was crazy. It was scary. No, it wasn't. They're normal-sized human and you're a giant. And these normal-sized humans coming at you, drunk, going, I'm sorry. You're not a victim in that situation. You're a bully. You're a giant bully. You had no business going in the crowd. You had no business swinging at a normal-sized human that poses zero threat to you. Zero threat. I was standing right there. I watched Jermaine O'Neal. Beer saved that fan's life because Jermaine slipped on Beer and missed his head and hit him in the shoulder, still knocked him right on his ass. But the Beer saved that man's life. And Jermaine might be in prison if he had actually connected and that man dies because he could have, because Jermaine is a big, strong human being, just like I am.
Yeah.
The outcome could have been far worse for us as NBA players than it was. And it was bad. But it was an awful, awful night that never should have happened for many, many reasons. Players shouldn't have been in the game. Coaches should have pulled them out. We should have called the game as soon as the fans come on the court, which it took a long time for that to happen before the PA announcer finally did something. The security measures have all changed in NBA arenas now. They're a lot stronger now because of that. But so many players shouldn't have run up into the stands. Like, who cares? Someone threw a drink at you. Oh, no. Thanks. You paid for that drink, and you also paid for my salary. Big deal. Oh, you called me a name. Oh, no. I'm a multimillionaire because you paid to be here. That's what I always said to people. Nobody could insult me. And I don't care if they said racial stuff. I don't care if they said insulting stuff about my family, especially in Utah. I never got my feelings hurt because in the back of my head, I always said to myself, I'm rich because of them.
Yeah. They
I
paid to
don't
be
have to
there.
work a real job because these people are paying to watch me play a game. Why would I be insulted by them? I don't care what these people have to say to me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if anybody in LA says, Pollard, you're a bum. You shouldn't even be in the NBA. I turn around and say, they pay me a lot to be a bum.
There you go. There you go.
It's very simple to have a slick back and let this stuff slide right off of you. I hated being a part of the brawl. I hate talking about it. I hate that it's still talked about 20 years later. It drives me nuts because it shouldn't have happened. And that Netflix special, I will tell you, Scott, it drove me. I watched it. It drove me nuts. It drove me nuts that they tried to act like victims.
Yeah, gotcha.
You are a giant among normal-sized people, and you're trying to act like people attacked you? It was the other way around. You attacked them. You went into the crowd, and then when they came down into our territory, they're still normal-sized humans. Unless they pull a knife or a gun, you have all of the advantage. Every single type of advantage you have as a human-to-human combat, you have it. You're bigger, faster, stronger, younger, in shape. Why would you be threatened?
Gotcha.
Why would you be threatened at 26, 27 years old, 24 years old, 23 years old, and this fat fan comes running out of the stands drunk, and you're like, we were fighting for our lives. No, you weren't. No, you were not.
Gotcha.
So I'm sorry. I hate that my teammates didn't have that kind of perspective that I had back then. And I'm not better than them. I'm not worse than them. I just wish that they wouldn't, 15, 20 years later, act like they were victims in the circumstances, because they were absolutely not. Yeah, every one of us was the biggest, fastest, strongest person in the building. Right. And to be scared of a normal-sized, fat, drunk person is silly.
Gotcha. Hey, didn't mean to hit a nerve there.
Sorry.
We didn't discuss this, but I appreciate your emotions, right there on your sleeve, because that's raw emotion right there. I was curious because I had a guest on the show who was Ben Wallace's agent, and I asked him the same question, and he said he saw it bubbling up and he knew it was about to happen. So you being on that team, you being in that locker room, I was just curious to hit your perspective on it. So we'll move on. But thank you for being so raw and real with it. That's good stuff. Talk about the Celtics, because you're with Doc Rivers and, Kevin Eastman is an assistant coach there. I mean, you're with Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Kendrick Persons, Ray John Ron. Talk about the culture with the Celtics when you could probably walk in there and you knew something special was going on.
Well, the first time they called, I said no. And then they talked me up. My financial advisor talked me into it. Because my goal when I was a little kid, I wrote a letter to myself in 4th grade. I said, I'm going to play 10 years in the NBA. And that was my goal. And Cleveland was 10 years. So I was done. I made it to the NBA Finals. I made it to the Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals twice, NBA Finals. I was like, you know what? It's never going to happen. I thought I was on all these good teams, and it's never going to happen. So I was good with it. And Boston said, hey, come help us win a championship. I said, hey, I know that you can afford me because of the veterans exception. You're only paying half my salary. The NBA is paying the other half. I only count against the cap half. So I knew that it was a bargain for them to have me on the team and my wealth of knowledge and experience. And so I finally went, and first day we had practice in September. What we did, and I rolled my ankle, and that was the end of my career. I played with it until February, and in February it finally gave out. And I knew there's a long story there. I knew there was a problem, but I played until February when it actually ruptured, and I couldn't even fake it anymore. I couldn't even try.
Yep.
to do it anymore. And so that's when I finally was forced to get the career-ending surgery. But it was incredible walking in the locker room knowing that we had Kevin Garnett finally with a talent around him to complement him. He'd never had that. He had players here and there.
Yeah, Minnesota for years, he carried him. Yeah.
And so I've always been that guy, side note, that when you put up numbers on a crap team, are you that good? Kevin was one of those guys that was actually that good. They just never could put talent around him to complement him and help them get into the next level.
That's real tough.
So finally it was there. We're in Boston. Plus it's the aura of Boston. It's the Celtics. They have more banners than everybody. It was banner 16 at the time, and our chant was banner 17. Doc Rivers was like, banner 17, we're going to win it. I lived on the 17th floor of the building I lived in downtown Boston that year. I wore number 66, and we won 66 games that year. I told Danny Ainge after the season was over, I said, hey, if you want me back, I'll move to the 18th floor and change my number to 67. He didn't bite. No, they didn't win, did they? They didn't win. Not since. So maybe Danny should have listened to me. I could have moved to the 18th floor, no problem. But no, it was fun to be on that team. Doc was, I only played for coaches that played in the NBA except for Mike Brown in Cleveland. Every other coach I played for. So again, I'm biased towards guys that played in the league. Doc knew his thing. I had to talk Rondo off a cliff once in a while. He'd get thrown out of practice, and I'd go talk to him and say, hey, what position did Doc Rivers play? Point guard. What position do you play? Point guard. So do you think he's riding you like he would ride me if I made a mistake? He goes, no, it's unfair. He's riding me, and he wouldn't say nothing to you. And I'm like, exactly, because he's a point guard. He's not we have a big man coach. That's who yells at me. He's yelling at you because he sees greatness in you, because you're not fulfilling your greatness. You are great. You can be greater, and he sees that. So he's pissed that you're not being the greatness that he sees, because you're more talented than he was. I played against him. I know. I'm like, hey, listen to it with that. And so I'd talk him off a cliff every once in a while, give him those speeches, and he'd, go in, and I don't think he'd apologize to Doc, but he'd say, I see where you're coming from. I'll be better tomorrow, and so that's always the case with young players. With older players, it's like, hey, that's why we're there, is to try to counsel the younger players. But the amount of talent from top to bottom, and it clicked. There was times where we had fun. There was times where we just didn't do basketball, and we just had fun. It wasn't as loose, and we weren't as close as, say, like the Sacramento Kings that had a core there for so long. But for a team that was just put together for 1 year, that was an incredibly close team. I really got along with Ray Allen. We've talked several times. I had him on my podcast back when I used to do podcasts years ago. Ray's, last time we talked, he's doing some restaurants down in Miami. But it was the same kind of thing, I'd be open and Doc would be like, shoot it. And I'm like, I'm going to go knock down Ray Allen's guy and let him shoot a three, because something tells me he's going to be up there in the 3-point rankings. And I don't need to shoot this 17-footer that probably will go in, but I know his is going in. And if it doesn't, I get an offensive rebound in a bucket. I'll take that. So,
if you didn't set those screens for him, Steph Curry would have just caught him that much quicker.
Exactly. And, it really, it's one of those things that if you come into the NBA with the mindset that I'm the superstar, unless you are LeBron, Kobe, Shaq, one of those type of talents, you are a role player. And that's the hardest thing for every other NBA player. There's only 5 or 6 in the NBA right now that are that type of talent, that really don't need anybody else to be great. And every other player in the NBA, everybody on their team is a role player. And there's 5 players on every team that think they're that talent and that they're not a role player. And that's where philosophically I was able to adapt and accept that I was a role player way easier than a whole lot of other players that come in, because we're all the best. I was the best in high school. I was one of the best in college. And then, we're all the best at some point.
Yeah. You're all that 1%. You're a 1%er.
You're less than that. If you get drafted in the first round, you're less than 1%.
That's
you're
right.
a 1%er. There's
Yep.
only been about 4,000 NBA players ever total. You know, and
That's
guys that
right.
played over 10 years, I don't even know. It's a few hundred. There's not
Yep.
thousands.
That's
And
right.
so it's crazy to think about that. And then you come in, you get drafted at 19, 20 years old. And I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, Scott,
No, this is
but
great.
you know, you would see players that are really talented, super talented kids, and they're like, I'm the best player on this team, man. You got to give me some touches. And I'm like, you are not the best player on this team by a lot. You need to stand in the corner and shoot threes, or you need to get the ball and drive to the basket and stop shooting threes. And they're like, no, man, I can do it all. Like, no. In the NBA, I know you can do it all. I can do it all. But I know what I'm best at. And what I'm best at is what I do. Because I'd go back in the summer and play against Kansas kids and other players that would collect in Kansas because that was my off-season home. And I'd go play and I'd bring the ball up the court and shoot a three, and you go in and they're like, damn, I didn't know you could do that. I'm like, I play with Reggie Miller. Why would I? I play with Ray Allen. Why would I jack a three when I'm playing with one of the greatest three-point shooter ever? Like, I know what I'm good at, but I can do this too. That's why I'm in the NBA, and that's why I do it in the summer. But when it comes time to play with the top 500 in the world, you're all role players except for LeBron, Kobe, Shaq, and I'm going back. I'm dating myself. I don't know all the stars right now, but Kwame, the Claw, that's the guy's name. I can't remember his real name. You know, I don't watch the game right now.
Kawhi Leonard. Yeah.
Kawhi, yeah, I said Kwame, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
No insult. I
got your back, Scotty. I got you.
Yeah, I don't watch the game, so I don't know the names. But it's crazy how many players that were so talented came and went because of their own mindset, because they couldn't get over the fact that they're a role player.
Yeah, it's that entitlement. They had that entitlement or the disease of me. So, but hearing the things that you're saying with me right now, Scott, that's why you were so valuable on the bench and so valuable in the locker room, because you could be that guy to, put someone in their spot or talk them off the ledge or, get them back into getting back into the team concept or putting them in a position to be successful. And again, that's why you were valuable.
Yeah, and I can't coach it, but I can certainly yell at teammates.
I love it. Well, let's change gears here for a second. A couple more questions here before we end, because this has been just enlightening and very empowering for the viewers and listeners. Who was the most competitive person that you were teammates with? What was it, a Kevin Garnett? Because you always saw his competitive drive. You played against a Kobe, but who was the most competitive person that you shared a jersey and locker room with?
Jock Vaughn. Jock Vaughn wanted to win every single day, every competition, and he would yell at us. He was our floor general. He was our Roy Williams in a jersey. He wanted to win more than anybody I ever played with. Kevin was a close second. Kevin was a great teammate. I can honestly tell you, if Kevin came in this room right now, I might hug him just because we won championship together, but we're not that close.
Yeah, gotcha.
Person to person, I respect the hell out of him as a teammate. I think he was a great teammate, one of my favorite teammates. But person to person, we're not the same dude. But Jock was the guy that it could be a rebounding drill in practice. It could be a passing drill in practice, a free throw. He wanted to win every one of them. And Roy Williams used to talk about Michael Jordan just wanted to win everything. Michael Jordan was a competitor. Son, let me tell you about competitors. And Roy was a competitor. But Roy,
you and Jock were just cut from the same cloth, plain and simple.
Absolutely. And it was lucky we played against each other in high school and played with each other in all-star games and stuff like that. And we just happened to pick the same college, and we roomed together all 4 years. We were best men at each other's weddings. And
awesome.
I mean, he's one of my best friends to this day. We don't keep in touch, but when we do, it's like old times. It's like we never missed a day. He's an old man. He turns 47 next month, the day before I do.
Oh, there you go.
So I always make fun of him as that he's the older man, but he's a day older than me.
Love it. Good stuff right there. Let's end on a fun note. You've got a lot of tattoos. What's your favorite tattoo and the meaning behind that favorite tattoo?
Uh, Probably the one I've been made fun of the most because nobody understands it.
Okay.
Across my lower back, I have "Son of Poison" written, and it was never a part of any other tattoo. My whole back is covered. Both arms have tattoos. My stomach has one. I got one of my legs, but my whole back is a tattoo. But at the time, I had this one written, "Son of Poison," was just there by itself, and I had a waistband tattoo. Um, my dad was in the state of Utah Hall of Fame, and his name is Pearl Ison Pollard Jr. And Pearl at the university, or sorry, at Jordan High School there in
The
Jordan.
beat diggers.
Pearl was a threat, and he was such a threat they called him Poison Pearl. And so many years later, many years after his passing, I decided to put that one on my lower back because I'm Poison's son of Poison. And it's the one that means most to me. I wore 31.
Wow.
He died, and everywhere since, unless the jersey was retired, which was here because of Reggie in Indiana, and in the Boston Celtics, every number is retired. So I wore 66. But I wore 31 every year of my career since my dad died because of his number was 31. And "Son of Poison," that's the one that means the most to me. And never a day goes by I don't miss him. I got pictures of him here in my office, and obviously my mom too. But I got my dad's Jordan High School picture right there, his whole team photo right there.
Wow. Good stuff.
"Son
Scotty,
of
this
Poison,"
this
proud to be.
love it. Thank you so much for your time. Just honored and humbled. And man, hopefully, we'll get to cross paths sometimes and have you come back and share more stories because we'd love to get more stories in locker rooms and on travel and on the roads. And that's where the fun stuff really is. But this has just been a great hour. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to, share your story and journeys with us, my man.
Thanks a lot for having me on, Scott. It was a pleasure, and I got stories.
Oh, I love it, my man. It's good stuff. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, can't thank you enough for spending this hour with us on the Coach Scott Fields Show. Hopefully, you have been entertained as much as I have. I learned a lot about this winner and competitor, and nothing but respect to you, Scotty. And thanks so much for being with us, brother.
All right, Scott. Thanks.
Oh, that's good stuff.